Hello Year 7, this is lesson 6 in the dissolving and separating booklet. We're going to have a look at where has the water that we drink actually come from. Let's have a look. Where might the water have originally come from? Perhaps it was once in the start of a flood in India. Perhaps it was in rain that ended the drought in Africa. Perhaps some of that water was once in the venom of a deadly snake. You never know. Perhaps some of the water that you've drunk may even have been once on the moon. It's an interesting point, this one. There's a couple of things that I would like you to look at on the interweb. What is the percentage of water that makes up the human body? It's fascinating. And you could find out about the percentage of water in a lettuce or in an apple or in a camel. Fascinating stuff. Let's move on. What you do have to understand, what I'd like you to be aware of, is that there's only a certain amount of water on planet Earth, and it is constantly recycled. Now, let's just have a look. These are some of the terms that make up the water cycle, okay? Number 1, precipitation. Number 2, condensation. Number 3, evaporation. What do these terms mean? We'll be going through that in a second. Groundwater flow, I'm going to label up as number 4. Surface runoff as number 5. And transpiration is number 6. Now, these images link up with these terms. Okay? But this column here has been mixed up. I wonder, why don't you try and label up the correct number for these sentences here? I should be putting in the answers in a second. Why don't you have a go at them? And as I've said before, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You know, the best people on the planet, the best scientists, everyone makes mistakes. Don't worry. Just learn from those mistakes. Okay, here we go. Number 1, precipitation. That is rain and hail and sleet and snow. That's number 1. Number 2, condensation. That is when water vapour cools and turns into clouds. You can cause condensation as well. On a cold day, go up to a window, breathe on it, and some of the water vapour that was once inside your body condenses onto the pane as like a sort of mist. Number 3, evaporation. Down the bottom, when the sun heats up water and it moves into the air. Number 4, groundwater flow. This is when water flows through rocks and soil underground. Number 5, surface runoff. This is when water runs off the surface of the ground and it will go into little streams and then rivers and then quite possibly flow into lakes or eventually into the sea. And then number 6, even though there's a gap, I want to make sure that they actually do link up. I'm not just going to write down number 6 here. I want to make sure that that's what transpiration is. And it's when the sun heats up water from the leaves of trees. Yes, a very simple explanation for transpiration, but I'll take that. So there are your answers. Now then, the water cycle. You can colour, spelt incorrectly. You can colour and complete the diagram. Okay, so you can colour in the mountains and the raindrops and the sea and the sun. Yes, give that a go. And then it says, complete the cycle with these 4 words: precipitation, collection, evaporation, and condensation. Well, I'm going to start at the top, I think, because we have clouds, condensing, condensation. And eventually, when there's enough water vapour in there, liquid particles appear. That's when we get the classic raindrops. There they are. There's the raindrops coming down. We call that precipitation. We then have all of that water flowing downwards under gravity. It's starting to collect in streams and rivers. It's collecting. Or from the top there, it was collection, wasn't it? And finally, the water flows into the sea. The sun's rays, light and infrared waves, come down and cause the liquid to turn into a vapour. And we get this process called evaporation. It's a cycle. Can you see it's moving round and round and round and round? It's a circle. Now, rain, snow, sleet and clouds, that will be precipitation. Water running from the land into the ocean, it's collection. Sun heats up the water, we're going to get evaporation. And the water vapour in the atmosphere turns into liquid water. Condensation, clouds forming. So that's the 4 terms that you should be using there. Let us move on. Making water clear. River water contains mud and dirt. Oh yes. These substances can be removed by filtering. At the waterworks, impure water is passed through sand in the first place. In the laboratory, a special paper is used and it's called filter paper. And if you were here, we'd be setting up this filtering or filtration system now. We've got here our muddy water. We are pouring it into the filter paper. The filter paper is going to help to catch most of the mud and most of the dirt. And it's going to be left in the top here. Can't get through. And then we've got clearer water in the flask at the bottom. But make no mistake, it may well not be safe to drink that water. Now, before we watch the video, let us label this up. We have here muddy water. It's poured into the filter paper, which is folded up in a special way. You'll see John the technician doing that. The filter paper is held in place by a glass or plastic funnel, double N. What's trapped? Well, we've got the mud and dirt. That's called the residue. That is our mud and dirt particles. Little bits of leaves and twigs as well. And then at the bottom, we've got the filtrate. You'll see that that is much clearer and cleaner looking than the muddy water. So let's have a look at the video now. So our filter paper is being folded in half, and you'll see in half again, so it's a quarter. And then you take one sliver of it, so it looks like a little hat. There we go, like a little hat. And it's placed into the funnel. Lovely. We've then got our muddy water, and it's poured carefully into the filter paper. Sir is using a rod just to make sure that all the muddy water actually goes inside the filter paper. It can't run down the outside. Now, can you see straight away that the filtrate is dripping through, and it appears to be much cleaner and clearer than the original muddy water. I'm going to move the video on. And a bit more. And a bit more. Right, okay. See what happens now. Look at all that residue in there, all the mud and the dirt. Clearer filtrate. Dirty water. Okay, some answers to questions on filtering or filtration. The substance left on the filter paper is called that's right, it's called the residue. That was the mud and the dirt particles. The clearer liquid which passes into the conical flask is called the filtrate. Has filtering made the water clearer? I would say yes. What is left on the filter paper after filtering? That's the residue or the mud and dirt particles. It's the same thing. What does the filtered water look like? It appears clear and clean. Now here's a big one, right? Give a reason why the filtered river water is still not fit to drink. How else must it be treated? Bacteria and virus particles. Will pass through the filter paper into the filtrate. How else must it be treated? Well, that is something that you could look to find out on the interweb. How are we going to treat this filtrate full of bacteria and virus particles? What could we do to that water? That is something that you could look into and find out yourself. And when you do this lesson, post it online, post the answer on, so that, you know, if you beat some people to the answer, you're helping them out, aren't you? And can filtering be used to remove salt from a salt solution? Remember, salt dissolves in water. It is soluble. Why don't you use the interweb to find that one out as well? Interesting. Now, just a visual. You can see here, you've got your mixture at the start. Then you've got your filter paper. And as the mixture goes through, the purple particles, they can't get through. They're too big, okay? That's your dirt and your sand. And what you want to get through is the sort of turquoise coloured water particles. That's the filtrate. But don't forget, those bacteria and virus particles are tiny. And they could end up in the filtrate as well. Next time, Year 7.